Many years ago, Rebecca walked into Brightline Solutions like someone who came to work, not to perform friendship. Well, that was her first crime. She greeted people politely, sat at her desk, opened her laptop and began work. There was no unnecessary laughter, no leaning on tables or joining conversations that started with side eyes and ended with laughter that stopped when someone passed. From that first week, people noticed her. Who does she think she is? Someone asked near the printer. She doesn't greet properly. Another person replied, even though Rebecca greeted them every morning without missing a day. The thing was that Rebecca did not greet with volume. She did not greet with bending or with gossip. She greeted with respect and moved on. That alone made her suspicious. Brightline Solutions was the kind of office where work finished early but talking never ended. People arrived late and stayed late, not because of deadlines, but because gist needed audience. Desks were arranged close enough for overhearing. Laptops were open, but attention was elsewhere. The office ran on rumors as much as it ran on electricity. But Rebecca did not plug into that system. She arrived early, left on time, and documented everything. Emails, instructions, deadlines. She asked questions politely and wrote down answers. Also, she was careful enough to refuse verbal agreements. She would always say, "Please send it by email." That sentence irritated people deeply. "Why is she forming professional?" one colleague complained. "She thinks we are thieves," another one added. Rebecca was not even thinking that far. She just liked clarity, but as we all know, clarity makes dishonest people nervous. During lunch breaks, Rebecca ate quietly at her desk or went outside alone. She did not sit at the round table where secrets were traded like snacks. She did not laugh when jokes crossed into insults, and whenever gossip started, she would stand up calmly and walk away. One afternoon, someone said she's proud. Rebecca heard it, but she did not respond. And so, the office began to agree on one thing. Rebecca was difficult. Not because she shouted or because she argued, but because she did not bend. One Monday morning, after a small misunderstanding about who should submit a report, Rebecca calmly forwarded an email thread showing clear instructions and timelines. The issue ended immediately. The report was submitted correctly and the manager nodded in approval. Unfortunately, that was when the tension deepened. People liked chaos because chaos hide things, but now Rebecca was removing these hiding places. From that day, jokes followed her. Madam Perfect, someone called out. Queen of email, another person laughed. Rebecca heard them, smiled, and then returned to her screen. Unknown to her, a name had already been given to her behind her back. She was now referred to as the problem, and they were bent on taking her out. Sometimes, Rebecca was informed late about important meetings. Sometimes, she was left out entirely. She noticed these things but said nothing. When she asked them politely, she was told, "Oh, we forgot." But the forgetting became frequent. Once, during a meeting she was included in, Rebecca asked one small question. "Can we confirm who approved this expense?" The room went quiet. Someone laughed awkwardly and asked, "Rebecca, why are you like this now?" "Like what?" she replied calmly. "Too detailed." Rebecca shrugged. From that moment, eyes followed her movements and conversation stopped whenever she approached. Files disappeared and reappeared, and small errors began floating around her name. Whenever anything bad happened, someone would say Rebecca was supposed to handle it, only for her to check and see that she had never been assigned it in the first place. Immediately, she would reply with an email attached with evidence, and the error would shift direction quickly. People did not like her, and Rebecca knew, so she tried to avoid them more socially. During office birthdays, Rebecca contributed money but declined group photos. One woman asked dramatically, "Why don't you like us?" "I do," Rebecca replied. "I just like work more." That answer spread faster than gossip. She's wicked. She has no sense of humor. She's not a good team player. Meanwhile, Rebecca began to notice something odd, very odd. Expenses were rising. They were small amounts at first, then bigger ones came. Approvals looked rushed and signatures were duplicated. Some documents even came without proper trials. She noticed the patterns but said nothing. Instead, she did what she always did. She saved copies, forwarded instructions, took screenshots, stored emails, and organized folders by dates and projects. At night, while others slept peacefully, Rebecca reviewed timelines. One afternoon, a senior colleague joked, "Rebecca, you will kill us with your rules." Rebecca looked up and replied, "Rules keep people alive." Laughter filled the room, but someone muttered, "Drama queen." After some time, Rebecca started to notice something again. The same colleagues who had labeled her as the black sheep began to greet her and compliment her with so much enthusiasm. She noticed it on a Tuesday morning. Immediately she stepped in. The air felt staged. Smiles became wider. Voices became softer and compliments were suddenly free. Someone smiled and said, "Rebecca, you look nice today," even though she dressed the same way every other day. Another person added sweetly, "Rebecca, you are so organized." She smiled politely, but deep down, those sentences scared her more than insults. In the course of her not so long time on earth, she already knew that when people who dislike discipline suddenly praise you, it means danger is close. Later that morning, another colleague came to her seat without permission and said, "Your work ethic is inspiring." Rebecca nodded politely and continued typing. This same person had once called her wicked. So, from where to where? Could this be signals? She thought. She knew that at Bright Line Solutions, friendliness usually meant one of two things. Either someone needed a favor or someone needed a witness, and Rebecca could be neither to them. And then suddenly, meetings multiplied. Every day, there was always a short closed-door meeting that was announced 5 minutes before it started. Surprisingly, Rebecca was now always included and always asked for inputs. During one of the meetings, the manager said, "Rebecca, you are very detailed. Can you help us review these expense reports?" Rebecca looked at the documents carefully and asked, "Who prepared this?" Silence answered her. Someone coughed and quickly replied, "Oh, we all worked on it." Rebecca nodded. "Please send me the breakdown by email." Their smiles froze slightly. After that meeting, Rebecca noticed something else. Tasks began to arrive at her table verbally again. They would give her instructions without emails or even make decisions in the corridors. "Don't worry," someone casually said. "We trust you." But Rebecca knew that trust without documentation is a trap. So she insisted, "Just send it by email." The laughter that followed was thin. During lunch break, Rebecca sat alone as usual. The round table was full and voices were lowered deliberately. "She thinks she's smarter than everyone," someone whispered. Another colleague replied, "Let her continue. People like that always fall." Rebecca ignored all the choo and ate calmly. But she was also prepared because she had learned early that when people start predicting your fall, they are already preparing the ground for that fall. That afternoon, a file went missing. Not physically, digitally. It was a report Rebecca worked on that disappeared from the shared folder. A colleague announced it loudly. "Rebecca, the file you handled is gone." All eyes turned to her, but Rebecca did not panic. She opened her email, forwarded the sent copy, and attached timestamps. "There it is," she said calmly. The room shifted. Someone laughed awkwardly and said, "Oh, it must be technical issues." Rebecca saved the laughter in her memory. However, by Thursday, the atmosphere thickened. Rebecca felt watched. She could feel the pressure from their eyes pressing down on her. That same day, she noticed a strange email thread. An approval request had her name copied without her response. A signature was assumed and the wording implied agreement. She replied it immediately. I was not consulted. Please correct this. The reply came quickly. Oh, it was just an oversight. Well, these oversights were happening too often now. At home that evening, Rebecca reviewed her files again, and that was when she noticed the connections forming. Same names, same approvals, same shortcuts. These people were moving money faster than process. Her heart started to beat fast because she knew the bomb would not take long to explode. The next day, a colleague joked loudly during tea break. Rebecca, if anything happens here, they will blame you because you are too correct. Everyone laughed and Rebecca laughed too. But that laughter echoed strangely in the room. Unknown to them, Rebecca had already noticed their games and she was watching her back. She knew she was the major target because she was already labeled difficult and clean. Still, she did nothing. She just remained focused on her work and increased her caution. And then it happened. Rebecca was working quietly on a Thursday afternoon when the manager stood up from his desk and cleared his throat. Rebecca, can you step into the conference room? People looked up immediately. Someone pretended to check their phone. Another person leaned back too comfortably. Rebecca closed her laptop calmly and stood up. She walked into the conference room without asking why. Inside there were 3 people, the manager, the finance officer, and one colleague who smiled too much. We just want to clarify something, the manager said. Rebecca nodded. The finance officer spoke next. There is a discrepancy in the last project's expense, and your name appears on several approvals. Rebecca did not speak immediately. She sat down slowly and crossed her legs. Her face remained neutral. Which approvals? She asked. The colleague slid a printed document across the table. Rebecca scanned it once, then twice. She noticed the phrasing immediately. Her name was mentioned. Her consent was implied, but thankfully, her signature was absent. I did not approve this, Rebecca said calmly. The room went quiet. The smiling colleague chuckled lightly. Rebecca, you were copied in the email. Copied is not approval, Rebecca replied. The manager frowned. Do you have proof to dispute this? He asked. Rebecca nodded yes. Then she opened her bag, brought out her laptop and connected it. Within minutes, she opened up emails, threads, and timestamps. Her replies were clear and her refusals were documented. She had insisted on email confirmation and highlighted it thoroughly. This is what I approved. This I declined. This I was never consulted about. The finance officer leaned closer. The smiling colleague stopped smiling. Well, maybe you forgot now. Rebecca looked at him calmly and said, I don't forget emails. That is why I write them. A heavy silence sat in the room, and then the manager cleared his throat and said, all right, we'll review it. Rebecca nodded, shut her laptop and stood up. As she walked back to her desk, she felt calculated eyes on her back. By evening, the story had changed shape. Rebecca noticed the whispers and the half sentences. Someone said, she's defensive. Another person added, she talks like a lawyer. Rebecca smiled to herself. People always insult intelligence when it escapes them. Unfortunately, the next morning, the accusation grew teeth. An email went out to the entire department that there had been an internal review regarding expense irregularities and all staff involved would be questioned. Rebecca read it once and continued working. Her phone vibrated with messages almost immediately. Are you okay? What is happening? I heard your name. Rebecca replied them politely, I am fine. By noon, she was called again. This time, HR joined. The room felt colder and the questions were sharper. Why were you included in these approvals? Why did you not escalate concerns earlier? Why do people describe you as difficult? Rebecca answered slowly. I was included without consent. I escalated through email. I am described as difficult because I insist on process. Someone scribbled down notes. Then Rebecca noticed something else. The people asking questions avoided eye contact when certain names came up. They rushed past some explanations and lingered on others. It was obvious they were just looking for a scapegoat. Outside the room, the office was vibrating openly now. Rebecca is in trouble. She's too stiff. See why people should be friendly. Rebecca heard it all but did not react. That afternoon, she received a private message from one of the loudest critics. Rebecca, we are on the same side. Let us talk. Rebecca stared at the screen briefly but did not reply. At home that night, Rebecca reviewed everything again. She noticed one dangerous thing. The people involved were getting careless. Emails were being sent in panic and instructions contradicted each other. Lies were rushing ahead of coordination. She saved everything again. The next day, the manager called a general meeting and declared some staff will be suspended temporarily, including Rebecca. A soft gasp went through the room. Someone smiled wickedly and looked away. Rebecca stood up and said, "May I ask why?" "For investigation," the manager replied. Rebecca nodded, understood. She packed her things slowly while people watched. Someone whispered, "I knew it!" Rebecca smiled faintly. As she stepped out of the office, she did not feel fear. Rather, she felt certainty because she knew suspension would give her space outside the noise to attack. Rebecca sat at home calmly, walking through files like someone sorting evidence for a future that was already decided. All this while, Brightline Solutions returned to pretending everything was normal. Then, 2 days into her suspension, she received a call from HR. "Rebecca, can you come in tomorrow?" She agreed. When she arrived the next morning, the office looked different emotionally. People pretended to be busy but forgot what they were pretending to do. Rebecca walked past her desk without sitting. The conference room was full. The manager was there. HR was there, finance was there, and 2 senior executives Rebecca had only seen in company emails were seated quietly at the far end of the table. Their presence explained everything. This was no longer internal drama. Rebecca was asked to sit. Before questions started, one executive spoke. "We have been reviewing financial records independently." That sentence opened the air. Another executive added, "We asked for raw data." The finance officer swallowed hard, but Rebecca remained still as emails appeared on the screen showing project numbers, dates, approval chains, and transfers. The room went quiet. One executive scrolled slowly and muttered, "Some approvals appear forged." Another one spoke. "Some instructions were given verbally and then later documented falsely." Silence deepened. Then the question landed. "Rebecca, were you aware of this?" Rebecca spoke carefully. "I was aware of inconsistencies. That is why I documented everything." She was asked to forward her records, which she did. Within minutes, her emails filled the screen. They showed clear refusals, requests for clarification, and warnings that were ignored. The timelines aligned perfectly with the missing funds. One executive leaned back and frowned. "So, you were not difficult?" No one answered. The smiling colleague from earlier shifted in his seat as sweat appeared on his forehead. The manager cleared his throat nervously and said, "We thought Rebecca was being uncooperative." Rebecca did not respond. Another executive replied instead, "No, from what I see here, she was being correct." That sentence landed hard. They dug more and more records surfaced, more names appeared, and more shortcuts were exposed. Within minutes, lies began pointing fingers at each other. One person spoke too fast. "This was not my idea." Another person spoke too slowly. I was only following instructions." The executives listened without sympathy, and by the end of the meeting, decisions were announced. Some staff were given immediate terminations, while some were suspended pending investigations by external auditors. Rebecca's suspension was lifted immediately with an official apology. As she walked out of the conference room, she passed desks that once conspired against her. Many were empty now, while the ones left could not even look at her. That afternoon, emails went out company-wide. It read, "Following recent investigations, certain staff members have been relieved of their duties effective immediately." Rebecca returned to her desk. Her computer was exactly where she left it. Someone approached her hesitantly. "Rebecca, we misjudged you." Rebecca looked up and replied, "It didn't go through. That's enough." By evening, the office security escorted two former staff members out of the building. At closing time, Rebecca packed her bag and stood up, but the office did not breathe until she left. The next day too, the office did not return to normal. What returned was something colder and more careful. The laughter reduced, conversations became short, and people stayed on their seats longer than necessary. They all typed with purpose now. Everyone suddenly understood policies they once mocked. Rebecca noticed everything. She noticed how people avoided her eyes, how greetings became formal, how jokes disappeared in her presence. She noticed how the same people who once called her wicked now lowered their voices when she walked past. Fear had replaced the familiarity. Consequently, the people removed from Brightline Solutions did not leave quietly. Investigations followed them outside the building. Their accounts were frozen and their reputations did not survive the explanation stage. One former senior staff member tried to return weeks later, asking for a reference letter. The receptionist shook her head politely and said, "We have been advised not to do so." That was the end of that conversation. 2 days later, the new manager called Rebecca into his office and said, "We want to talk about your future here." Rebecca listened without leaning forward. He continued, "We mishandled things and we allowed office culture to override process. We have seen our shortfalls and now we want you to take over project oversight." The promotion was clean and Rebecca accepted. Her first change was simple. In her first meeting, she declared, "All approvals must be written, no exceptions." Nobody argued. The second change followed too. She pointed, "If you are not copied, you are not responsible." Everyone quickly nodded. Then the third change landed the hardest. Henceforth, professional conduct will be enforced. Gossip is not an office culture. Nobody protested. They all adjusted fast. After that, Rebecca did not become warmer. She did not become cruel either. She only remained consistent. Now, when people gathered to talk, the only thing they said was, "She was always right. We should have listened. She's not proud. She's just solid." As a result of her leadership, the office became efficient. Projects moved cleanly. Money stopped disappearing and processes slowed down in a good way. Nothing happened quickly without reason anymore. As expected, some people left voluntarily. They said the environment was too strict. Rebecca did not even try to stop them because she was already prepared to lose people with loose characters. One afternoon, a former colleague who once mocked her stopped by her desk and said, "I just wanted to say sorry, we misunderstood you." Rebecca looked up calmly and replied, "You didn't misunderstand me. You just didn't like boundaries." The woman swallowed her tongue. Rebecca returned to her screen. That was the last apology she entertained. By the end of the year, Brightline Solutions looked different, cleaner, smaller, less dramatic and more productive. The company regained its credibility slowly, and Rebecca's name became associated with reliability, which was enough for her because she had successfully taught an unforgettable lesson, which was that a woman with boundaries is not dangerous because she's wicked. She's dangerous because she cannot be used. Hi besties, thank you for watching the story. This story is dedicated to our bestie Rebecca, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, Rebecca. May this new year give you peace that doesn't need explanation and joy that doesn't depend on people. Dear besties, let's say a birthday prayer for her in the comment section. Kindly share what lessons you learned from this story. Give this story a thumbs up and share it out also to your loved ones. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!